This is the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zeller. Oh, baby, I'm back. Did you miss me? Yeah, you did. Come on, look at that smile. You missed me.
My intro wasn't as good, I don't think, last week. So you come in hot, and that's your thing. I tried to come in a little more smooth. I don't know how it came off. Hopefully, we don't have to do it too often, though. Good to have you back.
No, I'm back. I'm fully healthy again. I'm no longer on COVID protocol. I was inserted into the lineup tonight, and I don't think I'm going to skip a beat. Don't worry, I'm going to be okay.
Your Iron Man streak's over, though, and it's a little. We got to start it all over.
51 episodes, and then 50 episodes, and then I drop, and then the 51st goes on without me. But I'm back for 52, and I don't plan on missing another. I got married in 17 days, and I'm not even going to miss an episode between then. So
yeah, it's amazing what it'll take you down. Good thing she doesn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah, true. You know what's crazy? Josh Bailey gets credited with the secondary assist on the Nelson goal tonight, and that is his 500th NHL point. And I'm like, wow, 500 points for Josh Bailey. And then I'm like, wow, 500 points for Josh Bailey
in 900 and change games.
I'm old. I'm officially old. He's in the NHL long enough to have 500 points. So, I mean, congratulations to Josh Bailey, though, right?
I can't remember the last Islander that. I mean, that certainly did play their whole career with the Islanders and hit 1,000 games, but we'll almost certainly get to that point with Josh Bailey.
Right.
I know that there were players in somewhat recent memory, I guess, depending on how old you are. And you might remember that. I think was it like Doug Waite had 1,000 games and he wound up playing them with the Islanders. There was a player or two around that time that I feel like hit 1,000 games, and they certainly were not with the Islanders for any, serious length of time. So it didn't seem like it was all that serious.
Yeah.
But Josh Bailey or a lot of these players that have been with the Islanders for some time now, you forget Nick Leddy's played 500 games.
Yeah.
With the Islanders over, since 2014-15. And the path that he helped get the Islanders on around that time. I thought about that when they posted that on MSG, how long he'd been with the team and all the trials and tribulations over those years to get to, where they are right now, literally tonight, as we record this, tied for first place.
Yeah.
After just beating the Washington Capitals 1-0.
Yeah, it's crazy. Nick Leddy, we got him when he was 23? He's 30 now. So it's crazy. Where's
we'll
the time
take
going?
A moment of self-reflection here and realize as the sides of our heads gray and our beards gray, or at least mine.
Yeah, well, while we talk about our boys, let's head on to On the Island. And On the Island is brought to you by DraftKings. It's everyone's favorite tournament of the year. The golfers are in Augusta, Georgia to compete for the coveted jacket. And DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy sports, is putting you in the center of the action by giving you a shot to land in the green. This week, DraftKings is giving you a free shot at $1 million top prizes when you download and sign up using promo code THPN. If you haven't tried DraftKings, this is the time. It's easy to play. Pick 6 golfers, stay under the salary cap, and submit your lineup before the tournament tees off early Thursday morning. Then sit back and follow the action. Rack up points for pars, birdies, finishing position, and more. Even though you may not be able to hit the course with the pros, DraftKings is giving you the chance to scratch your competitive itch and reign supreme. Download the DraftKings app now and use code THPN during signups. This week, DraftKings is putting you in the action with a free shot at $1 million in top prizes. That's code THPN, and you can get a free shot at $1 million in top prizes. Only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for more details. Let's talk about the previous week, which kind of includes tonight or yesterday as you're listening to this.
The previous week in between our shows is how we're defining that.
That's how we're defining it. And it was quite the good week for the Islanders. They go 3-0. They defeated the Capitals 8-4 in that crazy offensive outburst. They move on to beat Philly 3-2 in a shootout. And then tonight, they beat the Capitals 1-0 in Semyon Varlamov's 4th shutout of the year. What are your thoughts on the week that was?
I think, and just watching the game tonight, which I think Barry Trotz prefers, even if the margin was only 1-0, versus maybe a 3 or 4 goal lead last Thursday. I think the good thing is that we're seeing the Islanders continue to win in a variety of ways. Different players are stepping up at different times. I like the offensive outburst last week. I think that was good for the team. I would have liked to see a defenseman maybe get a goal. I know that Nick Leddy's having a heck of a year with assists, but I really would have
Yeah,
liked to see like Ryan Pulak uh, to really like break the
you
dam
can't
open
buy
with a
one.
goal. Can't buy one. But I would have liked to see maybe a defenseman or two get one just to kind of break that streak as well.
Yeah,
Um, to this point, they have 9 goals on the season. I have now 115 goals.
yeah,
Again, Nick Leddy, and they have assists and they're racking them up, and that's good. But it's a little bit of concern. Anyway, I think overall it's good for the Islanders. They kind of didn't end March the way that they'd like with those losses to the Pittsburgh Penguins. This homestand, it was going to be really important. This was kind of a make or break, specifically against the Caps, and I think it's good just for their mojo. Um, they're going to have to play the Capitals, most likely in the second round,
yeah.
to move on, um, to the conference final. Sorry. So I think it's, yeah. I bugged you about that, and then I just totally botched it.
I was gonna say.
On and off the air. But I think this is good. They proved to themselves that they can still beat this team, and I think tonight and what Joe and I spoke about last week, and that I know you also listened to. I liked this game tonight, the 1-0 win. I liked the best, even if it was a little bit of a nail biter and white knuckler through the whole thing, because it was the Islanders game for the first time in a
Yes.
while. It was they set the tone and the tempo, and they controlled it.
Yeah.
This was definitely early on. Looked like one of those games where they were going to control it. Sorry, I'll let you speak eventually. You're a co-host of the show. I like that they kind of set the tone and the tempo of the game, and it looked like one of those games where they were going to control it and lose 1-0. Like, and maybe that's just my
Yeah.
PTSD Islander fandom, thinking about years ago that absolutely would have happened. But this is a better team than it was.
Yeah.
Up and down the lineup, from the goalie out. So, yeah, that's I like the way that they're playing this particular game. The 1-0 win to me was important. I think for
Yeah.
them.
I agree because the 1-0 game is more their style. They're not an 8-4 every night team. Like right now, the Colorado Avalanche are dominating in every facet of the game. That they found a new level. I guess they got fully healthy and they're just dominating every game. They're scoring in upwards of 5+ goals a night. The Islanders aren't going to do that, and they're more suited to win the 1-0, 2-0 games. And I'll tell you what, I agree with you. I think Trotz probably liked tonight's game much better than the 8-4 win because yes, they scored 8, but they gave up 4. So I don't think that he likes that. They don't not too often do the Islanders give up 4 goals in one game. So
The league wants that 8-4, or
yeah,
even a 6-4 or something like that.
yeah,
I mean, that's definitely the barn burner type
but
game that
Trotz
the
and
league's looking
Lamoriello
for.
don't want that. It's not
No, and I don't think. I mean, those games, like if you're playing roller hockey, that I guess that's one thing, but
right.
it feels like the game's just out of hand. It
Yeah,
feels too hectic. Joe and I spoke about parity last week, just like throughout the league. Within a game, though, like as a microcosm, I don't know. To me, it's uncomfortable. It just
yeah.
feels like it's unpredictable. You don't have any
Well, that's the
control. It's
thing.
not your game. Even if you're the team that's scoring the goal, like, all right, well, if we get 3 in a row in 4 minutes, they can do it too. And you just never know where the puck's going to
Right.
bounce. And it just feels very out of control.
Right. So that was the thing, the 8-4 win. Um, I in my opinion, I had, when watching the game, thought to myself, I was like, oh man, like you just said, at any moment the Capitals can come back and do this too. Ovechkin scores at will. Kuznetsov's turned it up. Nicholas Backstrom's always been a very good player. Even
The
Tom
Barzell
Wilson.
penalty at the end of the first, I was like, oh,
Right.
beginning of the second period, here we go. This is where
Right.
it happens.
It was also encouraging that if the Capitals got one, even sometimes two, the Islanders always got it back. So it was good to see. They stuck in the game and they kept piling it on. The game started kind of weird because the first 30 seconds, Samsonov gets elbowed in the head by his own teammate, and he comes right out of the game. And Vanacek is forced to go back in, and then I don't know. To me, it was weird that in the start of the second period, Samsonov went back in the net, and then he gave up a bunch of goals again after that. So I was like, this is a weird game. But regardless,
and it was a few games in a row, and like in that maybe in a 2-week period where the Islanders started with they played both goalies for injury reasons or whatever.
Right.
They did it against Halak some time ago against Boston and also lit him up.
Yeah.
After Rask went out, but seems to be a little bit of a trend.
Yeah, but in years past, that 8-4 game could have easily been lost, and it was good to see that they stuck to it. Now you go to a game in Philly where they win 3-2 in a shootout, and the numbers don't scream that the Islanders probably should have won that game. But then you look a little deeper at the advanced analytics, and even though they didn't get a great number of shots off, they actually had plenty of attempts, and they played a really solid defensive game. So it was good to see they squeaked out another 2 points in a shootout. They found a way to win. Anthony Beauvillier was great in that game, scored 2 goals, and then Barzell buries that shootout winner, and Sorokin with the little shotgun. That was a great celebration at the end of that shootout. I loved that. That was I tweeted it out. I was like, somebody gif that for me, because that was just the first time he's shown some character like that, and I was really excited. And I think that everybody was really excited on the bench for him.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Islanders, you don't mind losing or winning that game against the Flyers in a shootout, because they're not necessarily a team that you're going to be duking it out with tiebreakers. You don't want to lose that game against Boston or Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're a frustrated team right now because they're not really sure what they are. You saw after Giroux scored both of his goals, very emotional, almost angry, like, yes, like, finally, thank God.
Oh, they just knew that that wasn't it. That didn't mean they won the game.
Right.
And he was like, all right, go line up.
Yeah.
We got to go.
We got to,
like, we don't have
more
time
work
for this.
to do.
Yeah, we're not there yet. This means nothing.
And, again, the Islanders just, squeezed them, kept them in a bottle, and again, squeaked out another 2 points. So, not their best game, but, good teams find ways to win, and they found a way to collect 6 points in their last 3 games.
Start off the homestand really strong,
and tonight's game was a pretty bow on top of all that. I thought that they got back to, out of the 3 games, this was Islander hockey, their best performance out of the 3. I will tell you what, Leo Komarov on the first line, not minding it lately. I'm not I don't mind it.
If he's quiet and even to some extent making some good plays, yeah, of course it looks good.
Now listen,
but I don't. I think the longer he does it, the more likely he's bound to mess it up. So I think it's kind of like you're don't play with fire.
Disclaimer. Yes, the Islanders still need to make a trade, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But for now, he's playing well. He's doing his job. He's kind of he's creating some problems out there for opponents. So I don't mind him. He's playing well. He knows his role, and he's doing it, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, it's okay for now. Definitely need to kind of make a trade, and like you said, we'll chat about that. And just something else, the Islanders go. Not only did the Islanders win tonight against the Capitals, but the Rangers beat Pittsburgh 8-4.
Huge.
And Boston beat Philadelphia. So now the Rangers move into that 5th spot. They're tied with Philadelphia, actually with the identical records. And the Rangers, I guess, hold a tiebreaker. And they've been playing really well lately. So good on them for making some noise and making that push. And now Boston's kind of caught up to the games played with the Rangers in Philadelphia. So everything is evening up at the bottom or the middle of the pack there. So, important games for the Rangers coming up against the Islanders that they need to be prepared for. And then they're right back at it against Philadelphia, but we'll also talk about that. Who did you find is playing well right now? What's your, a little, as week off from the podcast, kind of a little bit time off from writing. You must have some thoughts on where the Islanders are.
I'd be remiss not to mention Matt Barzal. He got the first start of the week in the NHL last week. And overall, the whole league, all 31 teams, 3 goals, 4 assists. He played outstanding. Great week for him. But I don't think he was the most important player to step up in this time of need. Anthony Beauvillier has actually been playing outstanding, and that can't be understated because he's stepping up at a big time where Anders Lee goes down and the Islanders need somebody to keep putting the puck in the back of the net, and he started to do so. He quickly now has 8 goals on the season. Not too long ago, he had 2. So this has been a really good turnaround for him. He's a very streaky player. I'm hoping it sticks because at one point or another, I think the other shoe is going to drop, and I think he's just going to consistently be able to do this. I know his name has been brought up in a couple of staple articles as a possible trade chip. I don't think that's happening.
I don't see that for
a second. I see they don't want Devin Tays offseason 2.0, and I think they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that all 4 free agents in Beauvillier, Pelech, Sorokin, and Cizikas are all back on the team next season.
They all want to stay. I think that's one of the more important pieces here. They want to be Islanders. This is
right.
This isn't like a first right of refusal. They're not just giving the Islanders like the time of day because they feel like they owe them something. They want to be on this team. You want to be part of good teams. And we haven't experienced that as Islander fans, right? Like we haven't experienced players actually going, wow, I want to go there. This is a good team. They're challenging. They're contenders. Maybe I'm the piece.
Right.
Maybe I'm the piece that's going to really make it. You can be as mad as Vanek back in the day. I don't know that he would have made a difference necessarily at that point where they were going to make our series run. Now, maybe 2 or 3 years into the contract, they start building around those players as possible. But at that time, if you're trying to win at that moment, the Ryan Smiths late in their career, etc. No, you weren't joining the Islanders as much as that hurts Islander fans. Right now, though, if Taylor Hall seriously does want to win, or Palmieri really does want to win, this is actually a team that you can go to.
Yeah,
the Islanders are finally a destination.
Absolutely.
And this offseason could, it could also be one of those things. We never know what Luke can kind of drum up during that period as well. So we will definitely see.
Yeah, we'll see. But as far as who is playing well in my eyes, Beauvillier was a huge addition. And I know in the past we're all, our addition was, somebody getting hot or coming off injured reserve. I don't think that this is that. I don't think that's what's happening. It's just it's a bonus because, again, Lee went down and there was a void and Beauvillier hadn't really found his stride yet. But it seems like he has. Hopefully it sticks. And like I was saying before, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop because I don't think that he's going to be a career player who's just streaky. Brock Nelson has finally flourished into a regular goal scorer. It's not just Brocktober anymore. It's Brarch and Braprel and Nelson area. I don't even know anymore.
Just man, you could just quit while you're ahead there. But I think that with this team and Beauvillier kind of stepping up, it's really that next man up mentality, not just for injuries. It's Wahlstrom was hot for a while. Barzal was kind of carrying things to push the Islanders over the edge to win a lot of games. Then you had Brock Nelson, really Cizikas. So you kind of just have guys stepping up when the team needs it.
Matt freaking Martin scoring goals off the side of goaltenders' heads.
Yeah, I mean, and for a while they were scoring goals at a good clip. 3 or 4 goals a night for a second in early March, depending on who they were playing. You'd find but even Kiefer Bellows. They won a 3-2 game against the Devils, and he scored 2 goals. So someone had to score 2 goals. And I think that's important.
side note on him. I think he played really well tonight.
We're gonna jump. We're gonna accidentally jump ahead here, but I'll pose this just because you brought him up. Do you think this was an audition for him to just get out there? We are. It's Tuesday the 6th as we record this at it's 10:30. We're less than a week away from the deadline, which is next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
I don't think it was an audition. I think he was just the best available right now. Johnson's
Okay.
a little banged up.
Things could be
Cole's
true.
a little banged up. Two things can be true. I just don't know that Lou is so worried about showcasing Kiefer Bellows right now. I think that he's more worried about the standings and collecting points. I think that's just where it was at. I think DC's a little banged up. Johnson's a little banged up, and he was just next best available.
Yeah, and I think it was a good move putting him in. He looked pretty good. There are some plays where I see him, and he's just not as strong body to body. And he's a young guy. I mean, he's got time. What is he, 20?
Yeah, he's 20, 21 around there. But I tweeted out, he listen, give him all the credit in the world. He tried to bang bodies with Ovechkin, but Ovechkin didn't even move. It was like a fly hitting a bear.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, there are veteran NHLers that can't do that. But there were a few plays where on the defensive side of the puck, and he was in good position and ultimately got the puck away. But just the body to body, he needs to build up the strength a little bit. Needs to put a little bit more weight on.
Yeah, I think his
Wallstrom
biggest criticism.
Wallstrom
seems to what? No,
he seems to have more solid footing where he's and it may just been him playing in Europe a little bit and getting that experience with playing against grown men.
Right.
Whereas Bellows just hasn't had that experience yet, and then he's not playing as often.
Well, he's had extra more time in the AHL than Wallstrom has. He's playing against men there.
That's true. It takes players just different amount.
His biggest criticism is that he just sometimes gets caught watching instead of moving his feet, and he didn't do that so much tonight, and that's what I noticed. I
did see it a couple times, but you're right. It looked better. His back check on Ovechkin, I think, early in the game was really good.
Very good. Yeah.
Those are the things that are going to keep him in an Islanders lineup, right?
Correct.
That's like a Michael Dalcole thing, even if he's on the score sheet. And he did have a few good shots. He is getting his opportunities. I think his line mates recognize that he's also a shooter, which eventually that line could really flourish. Knowing what you have in two of your guys in Peugeot and Wallstrom, if nothing really changes and Bellows isn't a chip to trade and you do get somebody, knowing that you can kind of put Bellows in there between Bellows, Dalcole, depending on who you're playing, or Komarov, I don't mind that. Of course you want as much consistency as possible, and that may ultimately be a guy like Dalcole.
Right.
But if you can sneak a guy like Bellows in there where he can be the extra offensive threat in the bottom six or the middle six,
it's nice to have.
It's nice to have. So, it'll be interesting how they kind of deploy guys going forward, depending on whether or not there's a trade.
Anybody you think needs to step up?
There was no one in particular. I liked that Dobson. This wasn't a step up thing so much as I liked that Dobson looked better tonight.
Yes, he did.
So he looks like how almost way closer to how he looked before he went out of the lineup for whatever it was, 15, 17 days from COVID protocol. But he looked good.
Unlike me, who seamlessly transitioned back into the lineup tonight, I do agree with you.
I mean, you did say GIF instead of GIF. I was going to let it go, but
did I? Damn it!
Yeah, we don't edit. This is just one straight shot. So what you're getting is raw. So if you laughed about that, no, I didn't just let it go. Yeah. We're here. No, I think, like I said earlier, the defense, I'd really love to see them get a goal soon. It's been a really long time since they've gotten one. Mayfield looks better. I think that pairing, that Letty Mayfield pairing, people were kind of on their case for a while. They've looked a little bit better. I'd like to see Wallstrom get back. I'd like to see him get one. He did get a lot of opportunities tonight,
Yeah, he had a couple
and
shots tonight.
I like that, and they were really good opportunities. I like to see either him or Pajot kind of with some sort of regularity, a goal every 3 games. Doesn't have to be every game, obviously. Just Wallstrom was on, and actually Pajot as well, where they were both on quite the streak for a bit. But I'd like to see one or both of them start. Eberle too, right? He's on the cusp. He what he hit 3 posts tonight, 2 posts
He
tonight.
had three. He had 2 posts, 3 total for the Islanders. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the 3 of them I'd like to start getting with some more regularity. But like I said, I think it's a lot of the next man up thing, and it just depends on what the Islanders need and when the opportunities are there, and they don't need to score a lot of goals to win hockey games. They've proven that.
Yeah.
In the offensive zone, I'd like to see one of the 3 of them start turn it up as the playoffs start coming on, and really make a push.
Yeah, I still think it's Bailey that needs to step up, man. I know he gets his 500th tonight, and that's great. But even if there are nights where he's not doing anything wrong, he's also not doing anything like game changing or not even that.
Is that his role anymore, though?
No, it's not. It's not his role. I shouldn't have said game changing, but I'm saying there's just the little things that he used to do that at least kept him in the lineup. I don't even see that happening anymore. I see a lot of flubbed passes, lazy plays, and I just think he needs to contribute a lot more for where he is in the lineup.
I would agree. It's not looked as bad lately. Like he's been off of the radar, which I think is good.
Right, but like I said, that's even still
he's got to contribute.
Right.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think he got a goal in the 8-4 game. I don't, however much stock you want to put in that. I forget which goal it was. If it was the 7th one and it was 7-4, I don't know that that's all that important. If it was, one of the ones closer to the middle where things were kind of going back and forth there for a second, yeah, that is kind of important. But it does get me thinking. He's 31, whatever the case is. 900 games, $5 million isn't really that bad when you really think about it. For a guy that's on your second line, maybe he gets exposed in the expansion draft, and
so hard to tell.
It is, and I don't think that's something the team wants to do, which is probably the reason it won't happen. But if it comes down to it, and you have an opportunity, you bring on Palmieri, and he wants to resign, and then all right, you don't want to sign this guy, give up assets, sign him, and lose him.
Yeah,
somebody's at risk of going. If they're going to go 7-3, I'd rather them take Bailey over Leddy. I don't think the team wants that either. I think they would choose Leddy over Bailey.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to see who. There's just so many possibilities here. Are they going to protect Mayfield because of his $1 million cap hit, or are they going to protect Leddy because of his 25 plus assist season that he's got going on so far, and he's looked fantastic. So it's gonna be a tough call to see who is it going to be Eberle or is it going to be Bailey? Is it going to be Leddy or Mayfield? Are they going to possibly, if they, and I don't think this is going to happen, but are they going to possibly leave Varlamov unprotected because they think Sorokin can take the reins, which I don't think is a possibility. No. But it's again, it begs the question. Now, interestingly enough, I read Staples' Q&A today with The Athletic, and he said he still thinks that they take Koivula or lesser, closer to the NHL guy like that after some sort of a trade is worked out. So
and that's fine too.
I can see that happening.
And that's been my argument kind of the whole time, is that the Islanders can't give up too many assets at this trade deadline. As much as they need the incoming player, they need the assets if they want. If Lou's true goal is to keep the team together, they need the assets to be able to send to Seattle.
Right.
So if they, a second rounders and a prospect is as much as I'd want to send out to get a Palmieri or a Hall or something like that.
Yeah,
but then you need to save your first to go to Seattle. But then it means your prospect pipeline is, I mean, they do have a few guys that could make noise, and it's they were lower picks, but you'd be surprised. You never know. People all of a sudden they come in the league. Kaprizov's 25.
True.
A couple of these guys are a little bit older, and that's totally fine. I mean, even Wallstrom and Bellows, right? They were, was it 2018 ish? It's 3 years later. You
Right.
never know. They're still young, but it's 3 years later all of a sudden. So you never know. I would like the Islanders somehow to get that prospect pipeline a little more stocked. You don't want to be a Pittsburgh Penguins where they
Yeah.
have to make moves every single year, shipping out prospects and this and whatever. And fans are a little nervous going into every trade deadline and playoffs because you just never know. Now they've managed to figure it out, but can Lou or future GM continue to do that? To keep the Islanders in the hunt. I think this team's window is a little longer than people outside of Long Island would give them credit for. I think internally we think it's a little longer, and that might just be we're too close to it. But yeah, they just have to be careful with what they're shipping out for this trade deadline, and then knowing what's ahead with the expansion draft.
We'll go into a little bit of an in-depth view on the trade deadline, but right before we do that, let's just talk about the week ahead. It's going to be an interesting week. They got Philly coming up on Thursday, and then they got the Rangers twice on Saturday, and then again on Tuesday, or is it before Tuesday?
It's Monday or Tuesday.
Monday.
Monday. It's one of those.
Well, like you said, the Rangers helped us out a little bit tonight with the win over the Penguins. They're starting to hit their stride a little bit, and I'll tell you what, Adam Fox is, in my eyes, a Norris candidate. That kid can play, man. So
yeah, he's getting a lot of attention as of late. As the Rangers are surging, he's getting some more attention. Sorry, there's a bug on my desk. That was they got him.
Spring is here.
Spring is here. Jesus, man, it's terrible. Like right on the water up here, and the bug. I don't even know what these things are. They're just super annoying. Anyway, yeah, he's unreal. He's future, definitely future Norris candidate. Future of the Rangers blue line, and yeah, I mean between both of their goalies that are really good, and Kincaid might stick around just as that insurance moving forward. He played really well. They seem to just kind of have it together a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not quite there, but they have a lot of the right pieces.
Yeah.
They stuck to their guns and their plan. They didn't try to do things they shouldn't do. I think that even if they're close to making the playoffs this year and they're pushing, they probably don't make a move just because that's the right thing to do. They're going to stick to the plan, and if they can make a push with this group, I think it's just an important, just like the Islanders a few years where they maybe made the playoffs, like that 2013 series. They probably should have made it that year, but it was a good experience. It adds up, and those are the kinds of things that you want to see. So good on them. And they play Friday and then Sunday. So Thursday, Friday, Sunday. So okay. Flyers on Thursday, Rangers Friday, Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. So again, the Flyers, I'll put it this way. The Islanders can the Islanders can come out of this week with another 6 points. I think they should come out of this week with another 6 points. The Flyers and the Rangers are both very good teams when they want to be, but they've also shown that they have a lot of defensive holes. They make a lot of mistakes. So I think that if the Islanders show up in those 3 games like they did tonight, forget it. The Rangers are going to be super frustrated. The Flyers are going to be super frustrated trying to, put the puck in the back of the net. It's probably not going to happen too often, if at all. So this is a week where I think it's important that they bank those 6 points because they're in a dogfight right now for first place. They're constantly going back and forth with the Capitals with, first place and then second place. And, the difference between first and second place isn't too much by the end of the season. Once you get into the playoffs in those 2 positions, you do have home ice advantage, which is nice, but matchups matter too. So And we've seen that the Islanders struggle a little bit this year against the Penguins. For what reason? I don't know. Does that mean anything when you get to the playoffs? I don't know. But maybe you want to see the Capitals early, or they're not going to see the Capitals. And I forget exactly how the seeding is going to go for this year specifically. But
I imagine it's
regardless,
1-4-2-3, and then go from there.
probably regardless, it still matters. And if they see if they come in first place and Boston comes in fourth place, they're 5-0 against Boston right now. So that's kind of a matchup you want to have.
Yeah, like I said during this, over the course of the season, if they do wind up seeing Boston, whether it was in the first or the second round, granted that these four teams were kind of in the mix, Philly throughout the season, Pittsburgh and Philly kind of swapped places as of the last few weeks. You want to know that you can beat these teams. You want to have the confidence, and that's what I said, at the end of March, and I believe in that one of those last episodes where it's important that the Islanders win the series against the Caps this month. The 5 games they're playing against the Capitals this month, they need to win that series. Even if it's 3-2, they need to know that they can beat them over a short period of time, because the road's going to go through them unless there's an upset in the division in that first round and the Capitals lose, which they've been known to do. This is a lot of the same group that won the Stanley Cup, but it's still a lot of the same culture that's been around since before that.
Yeah.
So they've been known to not make it very far sometimes. So it's important that they kind of get out of this month winning this series, and they're one game away from doing that. But they need to finish strong too, because they'll play them towards the end of the month. And I'll say this again, about the Flyers and the Rangers games coming up. Both of these teams are going to be hungry for different reasons, and this is a potential letdown 3 games for the Islanders. They don't want to get caught with their pants down. They need to control what the tempo and the tone of the game is. Philly's going to come out knowing that the Islanders have kind of reversed trend on them and started beating them as of late. They're in a fight for their lives to get into the playoffs, and that's really important. And the Rangers are just playing well. You don't want to think that, okay, they're the Rangers, they're out of the playoffs, and we're inching towards first place, and that they can just not play their game. You don't want to play down to your opponents. They should approach these games as if they're the Capitals, because they could very easily go the other way. So I think that's really important, something to kind of go into this weekend thinking about, to make sure that they're just prepared. And Trotz does that, right? They've had some time off. Clearly that benefited them. Sorokin will get another start. That'll give Varlamov some time off as well. You might see Sorokin get both of those Ranger games just to get Varlamov a little rest. They've been trying to do that. I've noticed where they're trying to get Sorokin the starts to give Varlamov extended breaks in between games, which I think is really smart, because Varlamov's getting the starts in the playoffs. There's no more 1A, 1B. They're going to go right through. So I think it'll be important, because they play Sunday and then they don't play until Thursday. So if you can get Varlamov rest, that you play him Thursday against the Flyers, you give Sorokin the 2 games Friday and Sunday. You don't have to play Varlamov until Thursday against the Bruins, and then it's a back-to-back. So then Sorokin even gets another start too. So you get him rolling a little bit. You get Varlamov in the mix. So not in this whole month is just not an easy schedule for the Islanders. There's no.
I mean, it never will be in this division, right? But I think what you said about these games being, they need to be played as if they're playing against Capitals is well said, because like you said, the Flyers are fighting for something to stay alive, but the Rangers are fighting to upset as well. So they want to.
There's something to prove.
Yeah,
even if they might not make the playoffs or make a serious run, they know that. I think they're honest with themselves, that the franchise has been honest with themselves, despite some other really bad decisions, and whatever this season or whatever, or dating back a year or so. With different social issues on the ice, they've kind of kept to a plan, and I think that's important. So if they can make the playoffs and take that step with a core of guys that are going to stick around, young, and guys like Panarin and Zibanejad and things like that. You don't want it. Like I said, you don't want to be caught with your pants down.
Yeah, and any team with Artemi Panarin is something, or a team to watch out for, right? And even Mika Zibanejad, as of late, has turned it on. He scored 40 goals last season. He's starting to, put the puck in the back of the net again. So,
Yeah.
they're definitely a team to watch out for, and stick to the plan, right? Stick to Islander hockey, and frustrate them, keep them to the outside, keep shots coming from the outside, and nothing in the high danger areas. But speaking of the playoffs, the Islanders will need to add to their roster before they get there. And the trade deadline is quickly approaching. There are tons of rumors circulating as to who the Islanders might be going after.
Nothing's really changed. It's been the
Nothing
same.
has
And
changed.
I don't know if that means that Lou has something else up his sleeve, that there's a name out there that we're not discussing.
And that's my point, too.
I don't, at this point, those names have been circulating. The Hall and the Palmieri has been going so long. It almost can't be them at this point. Like it's been way too much. It could, and and then we eat crow next week, and that's the end of it. But it's almost like, okay, nothing else has come out. Those are the obvious choices. I understand why everyone's talking about them. And as we've said, since Lou's been the GM, what else is he thinking about? He's seeing something. He's got a lens that we don't have.
Right. And I was listening to 31 Thoughts yesterday with Elliot Friedman, and Chris Johnston was on the show, and they were both talking about that they think that Lamoriello takes a big swing this year.
That's just because it's obvious.
They're
not hearing anything, and Friedman would be the first one to admit that nothing's coming out of that office.
Maybe, but I also, it does make sense, right? Lou is in win now mode. He got a $7 million cap relief from the Anders Lee injury. So, I can't help but think that there is someone that we're not thinking of that Lou is. We're connected to Hall and Palmieri, like we said. Ultimately, I think that we walk away with Palmieri in a depth forward, but they also connected the Islanders to guys like Nick Foligno. Alex Iafallo from the Kings has come up a couple of times in a couple of different areas.
Who said it? I've seen it around. It's not like, I think people think that it was said on 31
It was
Thoughts.
said on 31 Thoughts. They said that they would be willing to listen in on him, but I think the idea with him is also to retain him. Same goes for Dustin Brown. We've spoken about this a couple of times, and Elliot Friedman did confirm that there was interest on the Islanders' end, but the Kings don't want to do that. They don't want to trade Dustin Brown away because they might be going on a playoff run. They're on the cusp. So, and the same might happen for Iafallo. I think the thing with that, though, is he's a younger player where he could retrieve more, so that the Kings might want to think about shipping him out to get some assets for him, instead of letting him walk away for nothing, because they might feel like they can't sign him. So that might be a player that they're willing to trade, and less likely a Dustin Brown, who they don't get too much for and can help contribute to a playoff run. This season.
Iafallo's a third. He'd plug in on that third line.
Yes, and
so that would be
he's got like 9 goals and 14 assists this year. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and he's kind of in that range normally. The name had popped up for me in the past, just like, oh, I know that guy, and you kind of pay attention. You don't really watch a lot of Kings games, but looking him up recently as the name started popping up, really just from the people, like, I'm not really worried about certain accounts names floating around. With inside and outside the Islanders community, but yeah, you kind of like look it up when it starts getting a little bit of little more serious and more traction. Just on guys that are going to move around. And yeah, he's a decent player. I think if something like that happens first for some reason, you kind of know it's not Hall.
Yeah.
Right. If it's Hall, it's a lot harder, unless Buffalo retains, to make a second move.
Yeah, there's so many,
and that's kind of the thing. So if Palmieri happens, and it's Palmieri, not Palmieri, not for you, just everybody else. I hear everybody else not pronouncing it right. Sorry, the Italian in me. I just gotta get it right. Yeah, you want to. It depends on how things happen. If that trade happens first, then you're most likely trying to fill in maybe with a depth player. I don't know what his cap hit is. I forget Palmieri's.
It's like 4.8 something.
Yeah, so that's more than enough room to then make that depth move if you want.
Right.
And if they're not happy with Aho and Hickey, they can make a defensive depth move as well if they want. If they think Dal Cole's going to be back and they're comfortable with that, and they like Komarov as the depth, or Bellows as the depth, and they'd rather make that defensive move. That's an option too. I don't know that they necessarily need to do that.
I don't think they will either. I think that they're comfortable with Hickey. I think he really proved that he could still play. I think he's pretty much solidified himself as that seventh defenseman. And if Green, let's say, were to go down, I think they'd be perfectly fine with having Hickey play every night in his place.
I will say, look, you can whether it's Hickey or Aho or they make a depth move. It's only Dobson and Green can go down before you can't replace them anyway. It doesn't matter who you picked up.
Yeah.
So that's the fact that Dobson went down was lucky. Right. So you had Green that was just going to be steady as a rock. You didn't have a guy that didn't play with Dobson. And Dobson, that's nothing against him. It's just he's not the same player as Green. So you had Hickey and Aho out there with the veteran to kind of with Hickey's case, even more than a veteran in Green, to really keep things solidified. But if you lose your top four, anyone in your top four, does not matter who you traded for to get depth, unless it's somebody really serious. And in that case, we're all scratching our heads at the beginning before that injury happens anyway, and it's probably not going to happen. So that's, you got to think of it like that as well. There, not only might there not be a reason, but to really make a difference, like, you can kind of replace Lee's offense to a degree, but what the top four Islanders defense bring to the table is almost not replaceable. Like, no one's trading those guys, that type of player.
Yeah, that's true. And like I said before, I think we ultimately come away with Palmieri and another depth forward. I don't think they go the defenseman route. I think, like I said, Hickey satisfied that possible uncertainty. But I think he does.
But I'd like to see it. I think that'd be really good.
What?
A Palmieri.
Oh yeah. Well, again, I think they do. I think they walk away with him and another depth forward. But something in the back of my head just keeps saying something else might happen. Like, put it to you this way: the Flames are kind of dwindling, not in a playoff position right now.
I wonder if they go, after a guy with term. I don't. The thing is, I don't know how that works for them in the offseason. I think that's what's handcuffing them. Is, of course, they'd like to do that because doesn't Gaudreau have another year left?
Exactly.
Ideally, you kind of try to make that happen, but it might mean so you can't add Gaudreau for this run. Maybe make it to the conference final again, and then lose Beauvillier because you can't re-sign him.
It's just there's a lot to figure out, and that's why I'm more optimistic that he'll go after a guy who would be a rental with the possibility that after the expansion draft happens that they say, okay, here's what we have to play with. Do you want to come back for 2 to 3 years on a $3 to $4 million contract? That I could see happening.
The flat cap's doing nobody any favors. The players.
Exactly. So I think it's more likely that we get a couple of rentals. But if you're expecting a Peugeot type deal to happen where Lou acquires somebody and 10 minutes later he's also signing a 6-year extension, I wouldn't put my money on that because, again, there's so much that hinges on and depends on this expansion draft. The cap is supposed to stay at where it is. I almost wonder if they increase it a little bit. Don't really know yet.
Depends on what the playoff revenue does.
Right.
If that continues, and
don't hold your breath though.
Yeah, I'm just the way things are trending right now, particularly in Canada where you're you're going to make even more than money. It's surely not happening in Canada
Yeah.
for this year's playoffs, and that's super disappointing for their fans. But even in the States, I with the way things are going and the cavalier nature in which people are kind of, they're getting vaccinated or they're not getting vaccinated, and they're pandemic fatigue and all of that. When you're hearing officials be like, this is a little scary, and then there's more variants. The thing with the Canucks is really scary with the
Yeah.
Brazilian variant, really taking players down, bringing IVs to their homes. We're not even sure how many people are sick at this point, within the organization. Forget about just the players and some of their families. The revenues, you never know. And that really makes a difference with that. So sorry to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's all related somehow. So yeah, as far as the trade deadline is concerned, it's anyone's guess. I'm trying to, like, I don't even know where to start to look outside the box.
So it's anyone's guess, and I think that you should find comfort in the fact that there is going to be a move. Lou's going to bring in somebody. It's going to be a top 6 forward, possibly more. Who? We don't know. My question to you is, you just said, I don't know how to begin to think outside the box, but try it for a minute. Off the board, who would be your guess, with or without term? What's a player, or who's a player out there that you think could possibly be retrieved?
I know this isn't good content, but I almost want to go on Cat Friendly and be like, who's just a UFA going into the summer? Like I don't know the Red Wings roster. Like, is there Athanasiu, or you've brought up Anthony Mantha a number of times. Like, I don't know if he's a first line guy, but maybe on the Islanders he's a first line guy. Like, I don't think Eberle's a first line winger on any other team. I think he's a top 6. I think he's a second power. You know what I mean? I just don't think that he's. I mean, look at the Maple Leafs and their roster and the guys they have on their second line. So it depends. It really depends on the roster. But I think on a normal team, the Islanders, like we've said it a bunch of times, and I actually heard somebody say this about the Nashville Predators, that they had 3 second line centers. Like, the Islanders had 3 second lines. They're all pretty equal. Barzal this season, I think, has taken things to a different level. He's scoring in much different ways than we've seen before, and obviously that's exciting. So there are guys that at first glance you're like, oh yeah, they're not a first line player. Like, they're not a first line left winger. But you got to think, okay, on the Islanders, would they be? Do they complement what's going on there? And that's where it becomes harder, because I feel like all of a sudden you have not very much depth in how many players, but it could be anybody. It becomes more like analogous, and you're not really sure what's going on.
I like that you said Mantha, because I feel like that's a good off the board pick. And on the Islanders, I do think he would be a first line forward. I think he's a 30 goal scorer if he's not playing in Detroit. Now, he's playing with an extremely skilled center in Dylan Larkin, but the structure's just not there.
Not Mantha. He's at 5.7 through 23, 24.
The other forward in Detroit that I think is really interesting is Tyler Bertuzzi. He almost reminds me of Brad Marchand. So I would love a player like that on this team.
I think he's on the IR, so that's unlikely.
Is he? For how much longer?
I don't know, but if he's still on it right now, that doesn't. He's at 3.5. It's just this season. But he's an RFA, so that complicates things.
Yeah, it does.
Unless you give up a little bit more. Yeah, but I'm trying to think of those other guys that, and they don't have. That's probably a bad roster to be looking at. But yeah, I think and I think that part of the issue is that because of the way that the standings are this year, and the way that things are working out, there aren't that many teams that are sellers that have anything that other teams want.
Correct.
Like, even from in the West Division. like you said, even Los Angeles is kind of in the hunt there. They have 2 games in hand on Arizona. They have 34 points. Arizona has 43. I don't know what kind of run they could possibly go on, but that'd be something serious. And they're 3-7-0 in their last 10, so they're most likely super out. So you got Los Angeles and Anaheim. That's 2 teams. In the Central, Dallas can make a run. They have a few games in hand on Nashville. They have 36 points to Nashville's 43. Nashville's been playing well, so they're kind of off the board. Chicago's still in the hunt. So you're really looking at Detroit. And Columbus, I think they're a dumpster fire as usual. Despite some like crazy playoff runs, it's nothing of substance. A lot of spark, no bang. Or a lot of bang, no substance. Whatever the saying is.
You got it.
So there's two. So that's 2 teams there,
Right.
Maybe Columbus maybe wants to hold on to their guys. I don't think Nick Foligno's been a long time Columbus Blue Jacket. I don't think he's going anywhere. So that's maybe 1 team, conservatively 1 team. So that's 3, and then you got Calgary and Ottawa. Maybe
you can't even trade. You can't even
maybe
trade with
Vancouver
right now. You can't even trade with.
Can't even trade the Canucks. So, and and I don't know that there's anyone on that team that would be worth it. So you're looking at Calgary and Ottawa. You're not making a trade with New Jersey and Buffalo. So like, there's literally 4 teams you can look at to make a trade, and it super, super narrows down who's available. The North is pretty much wrapped up. Montreal's 2 games up on Vancouver. Vancouver's also not playing. They're going to come back and be slow. They're going to have that Buffalo effect.
There's talks if they might even come back at all. Can that team recover from this?
The way that it is, I think literally not even just like, can they get back into the swing of things, hockey stuff. I'm talking about like in their lives. Like, are they going to be physically healthy enough
That's what I mean.
to do it? Or are they going to have to call up the Utica Comets?
Right.
And they're sharing prospects with, I believe they're sharing a farm team with St. Louis this year.
St. Louis, yeah.
So that complicates things. Yeah. I'm not sure. I just don't think that there are very many teams to actually make a deal with where there's players that you want. I think it's very, and not to put a damper on. I think there's Hall and Palmieri and a few other players are available. Like obviously there's noise out there.
Yeah.
I don't, unless it's a trade like off the board from those types of teams that lose making a deal with somebody in another division where you're not going to see them until the final, and you're tossing it up, and that's a good bet. Chances are you're not going to see them.
Right.
If they're willing to make a move, maybe Nashville's still willing to make a move if they think adding Bellows is going to just add depth. They think that's depth. They're seeing it differently. But the Islanders are going to need to up that to that like first round pick or something to get someone of any kind of consequence. So the teams that are in the hunt aren't shipping out a top 6 forward.
Nope.
Even an Islanders style top 6 forward. It's not, in knowing that the Islanders are the team, they're not really in the position of power here. Other teams know what the Islanders need. This isn't like a secret. This wasn't like Pajot.
I don't think anybody's in a position of power right now, to be honest.
Well, it's not. What I mean is that there's like teams like the Avalanche or the Leafs or something where they're really at the top of their division, or Florida or Carolina. Or Florida's a bad example because they had an injury, but like Carolina or Tampa, like they don't have an injury. The Islanders have a very known injury to their top line and to their captain. It's a lot harder to go out and be like, try to swindle another team and you get a really good deal on something when they know what you need.
It depends on how the market is set, right? Because the asking price for Taylor Hall is a first round pick, but nobody's jumping.
You got to start there though. It's like, it's like you're selling a car. You want to sell it for 10 grand. You can't start the bidding at 10 grand. Like you can't start the negotiation. You started at 12. They're going to go to 9 and you're going to wind up 10-5 and you're going to get 5.
True.
You got to start with something. You can't be like, yeah, we want a second round pick. And then a Lou Lamoriello comes along and
Right, and that's
strong arms
why
you into some 9th-round pick that doesn't even exist anymore from 1991, and you're just like, what happened? Why I have Darius Kasparaitis in a 9th-round pick. How did he even do that?
well,
You know,
that's my point, right? The market has to be set, and the Sabres are asking for a first round pick. Nobody's jumping at that, so what ends up being the price of a player at this deadline, because we know what the asking price is, but what do teams ultimately end up paying for? So time is going to have to tell. The first shoe is going to have to drop, and that's something else that came up on 31 Thoughts yesterday too, was who's going to be the most aggressive at the deadline. Who do you see striking first out of X, Y, and Z general managers? And sure enough, Lou Lamoriello was first on Chris Johnston's list. He said, I think he's going to strike first. So
that's wild, because I think Staples said the opposite, that Lou doesn't want that necessarily, and he
right,
thinks the closer you get to the deadline, the better of a deal
agree.
you're going to get. So
And it's not really his MO, right? He always says, if you have time, you use it.
yeah,
So
so I don't think
it's
that
gonna
they make the
be
move.
it's just gonna be it's gonna be a stressful week, guys. Buckle up, because the answer might not come until 3:05 on April 12th,
Yeah, as the paperwork
as the paperwork is
goes
being
through.
filed and it goes through, and 3
That's
o'clock's
tough.
gonna hit, and there's gonna be madness. Everybody's is it 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock? I think it's 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock's gonna hit. There's gonna be
Whatever.
madness on Isles Twitter, and everybody's like, "What's going on? I need answers," and nobody's gonna know. Something will have happened, but nobody's gonna know. And once that announcement finally comes, I think everybody's just gonna freak out. Now, it could be very similar to last year's deadline, where maybe tomorrow a smaller move is made, and then you kind of, maybe are able to phase out. Okay, it's not going to be Taylor Hall
Well,
because they
that's what I
can't.
said. Like, if they add a depth forward, almost certainly, if it's somebody that the Islanders want, they're probably going to have to overpay, just because it's
Yes,
somebody. It's going to seem like an overpay because it's somebody the Islanders really want, but it's a depth guy at
like
$2
Andy
million.
Green last year. Everybody was like, "Oh, they overpaid for Andy Green. They paid a second round pick for him." But to be honest, it's been worth it.
Right. They're going to wind up getting a $2 to $3 million player for that third line, and then you're going to go, okay, so it's a Palmieri level player that they're going for. This is
Right.
where, and they literally don't have the room. It's got to be another than $3.5 to $4.5 million player just to fit in there. Now it depends on what's going out, but even if it's a Bellows, he's on league, not league min, but he's on an ELC, so it's under $1 million. I think that's what I'm curious is, like, what are the actual assets that the Islanders feel comfortable with sending the other way? I can't think outside of um of Bellows and a second and a third or something. Like, to me, that's what's going the other way, one way or another. I don't know how you sneak something else in there. Maybe there's an asset that other teams want that the Islanders are like, sure, we're not thinking. We never really considered that. We didn't even consider that because we didn't think you'd want it. But great, sure, guy. Take him, whatever you want. So I'm curious to see what that is ultimately, and then you got to cross their fingers, especially if it's for Palmieri. Bell's going to New Jersey, and then
Gotta hope
hopefully
he
he
doesn't
doesn't.
flourish.
Yeah, you hope he doesn't light up. Now, Palmieri could do the same thing. The Islanders win the cup, that pretty much cures it all, or at least 2 years going to the final, and the East final anyway.
Yeah.
Which would be something. They win the division and go to the final. That would be wow. What a time to be an Islander fan.
Yeah.
That would just be absolute madness. It'd be upsetting that not all of us could be at the Coliseum together, especially for one last banger on the way out. That would be a hell of a way to send her off. But yeah, I'm curious to see what all these packages look like and the initial reactions, because we'll have our initial reaction on that day, and then I'm sure we'll wait until later that night to record, give ourselves
Yeah.
some time to process it all. But I wonder what it's going to feel like, like a week from today as we as we record.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a live emergency pod or something like that and just talk about the initial reaction of said trade. But 5 days as this episode drops till the trade deadline, so you don't have to wait too much longer. We've been waiting for a long time now, and we'll see what happens. But let's head to around the rink and talk a little bit about the NHL news that's come up in the recent couple of days. Couple games ago, Connor McDavid received a fine for an elbow that he threw to Jasper Kotkaniemi. And I guess it was good enough because he's a first-time offender. It was the league maximum fine. So, again, first-time offender, and regardless if the NHL wants these kinds of hits to stop, it's a big if for me. I don't think Connor McDavid's going to do this again, but if he does throw another hit like that warrants a look like this, it needs to be a suspension. I get he's your superstar. He's the face of the NHL. But if there's a next time, you want to nip it in the butt. You don't want players getting comfortable and saying to themselves, "Oh, we could do this," and they start doing this, and guys get hurt and long-term injuries, and you're messing with people's livelihoods here. So there needs to be, if next time it happens, some sort of suspension. But I think the fine for the first-time offense was good enough.
I don't like it. I mean, giving him a game, even just one game in a shortened season, would have, I think, shown the rest of the league that they're taking it seriously. I think the issue is that the NHL doesn't take it seriously. The officiating this year has been suspect at best. There have been I saved at one point and it was for another reason that I had posted it all. I believe it was right after the Tim Peel thing where it was making calls and policing. We spoke, Joe and I spoke about that last week. I think so. I saved all these videos. I think I might still have them on Twitter in my likes. They're very clearly not taking it seriously. There have been so many very clear hits from behind from against Connor McDavid. Then you get him doing it. It's so no one's managing the game. Even if that's what the NHL wants, and that's what Tim Peel was just carrying out. The NHL is not managing the game. There have been a lot of dangerous hits that go not undercalled, right? Not like boarding 2 minutes and you're like, that is very clearly 5-10 in a game, or that's a whatever, right? Not undercalled, not called, not even not suspended, no fine, nothing. And then you kind of go out and Connor McDavid, who I've seen this season get hit from behind, close to the boards, close to the bench, whatever the case is. No call. No wonder he's frustrated. I think it's bullshit. The league is bullshit.
Nathan MacKinnon throwing the helmet at Connor Garland's face. Did you see that?
Yeah, I think
same deal. He got fined as well.
He got fined. Garland, I feel like there was a little bit of an overreaction. Maybe you didn't know how fast it was coming at him, and it's one of those things you just kind of overreact.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a ridiculous sequence. I think altogether. I don't even remember how exactly they were kind of wrestling and whatever.
Yeah. That's how he lost the helmet.
Yeah, it looked like McKinnon was trying to get his helmet off. Like the whole time he's like trying to. He may as well have just been unbuckling with his freaking teeth. it was ridiculous. But that I don't know. Yeah, I guess throw him a fine. No one got hurt. It's not that big of a deal. Some of the other stuff's just been a joke. We've seen it against the Islanders. I feel like Eberle recently it was the recipient of a nice hit from behind. I feel like Barzal is often hacked and whatever within an inch of his life, and often doesn't get the call. And that's not because these are just dangerous calls. This isn't because it's against an Islander. Because like I said, the first ones that I've mentioned were against. Mainly in the West. I feel like maybe it's just a little rougher out there or something like that, even though the East is typically known for that. But it's a lot of dangerous things happening this season that is, the league doesn't care. The league doesn't care about the players. That's what it comes down to. Because if they were trying to get headshots and these dangerous plays out of the game, they would have done it. But they're They don't. And I wanted to mention this a long time ago. And sorry, listener, that we're getting a soapbox kind of later here in the episode. But I listened, and maybe I did mention this a while ago. On the podcast, You Can't Do That, which is super funny. I recommend it. Just hockey fans, it's just I enjoy it anyway. They had a few episodes ago. They talked about just the league and violence and the way that it's just what it is. They're not taking it out of the game because that's what they want in the game. They're like your Twitter feed. They're curating what they want in the game. They only fine this so that it's a fine, and they set a precedent for not only for McDavid and for future suspensions or different things, but for other guys. And this is just in the game. This has always been in the game. Pavel Bure did it back in the day. It's like, look it up. It's a brutal elbow, but it's very serious. He was getting mugged and mugged and mugged, and eventually he was like, nope, and he elbows him. If you remember, was it Ty Domi or Darcy Tucker back in the day on Niedermeyer? That was way away from the puck, and that was a Toronto Devils series back in the Devils' heyday. There have been a few of them.
Yeah.
And this isn't Colorado Detroit level bedlam from back in the day in the 90s and early 2000s, but if they wanted to get this stuff out of the game, they would have found a way. They just don't want to do it. That's it. So then you get what's the equivalent? What does he make? $12 million a year? Even after all the fees and stuff, let's call it a cool $9 million. $5,000?
Yep.
The guy that spends that on post-game meal with his teammates. Back when you could do it. But what was it, the equivalent? It was like a $30 fine or a $20 fine.
Basically.
Is that really? He
doesn't
even
point.
Know. It's nonsense. And seeing what they're not calling at all, right? Forget about what they're actually giving a $5,000 fine to. Yikes. Like, it's not consistent. Not that that's really ever been the case in the NHL, and I'm sure every fan of every sport will say that about their officiating. But as far as the safety of the players are concerned, it doesn't look good. That's not really how you're gonna police the game.
Yeah.
And a fight what does that solve for that? So someone fights no one's fighting Connor McDavid. So you just totally removed it. And my favorite thing is the suspension without the call. Like, why is there such a why aren't the refs and player safety? There should be no difference. Those are the same department. The fact that there's a player safety department going, that wasn't safe, we're suspending him, and the refs are on a completely different plane, that's a fucking joke. That's a joke.
Yeah,
those are the same. Those are the same thing. Officiating is player safety, and player safety is officiating.
Yeah, I mean, even the little things in officiating too. Less serious than elbowing sequences like the one that McDavid threw, but something as little as tonight where the refs really swallowed the whistle and against the Islanders, seemingly there were a bunch of calls that they missed. So overall, in yes, the player safety aspect and improving the game, the officiating needs to tighten it up. It's been subpar at best. It's been less than subpar. It's been pretty bogus. It's been pretty bad, and the officiating could use a fine tuning.
What were the power plays? Right? Yeah, two each, as usual.
There were a bunch of plays where there was a clear too many men for the Capitals that nobody saw. There was a call against Matt Barzal that was called for interference. That was not an interference. It's like something's got to change here. That there's a disconnect here between the league and the refs and the game.
Yeah, my issue is that there's no way that almost every single game each team has the same amount of penalties. Or within one. And that goes back to that, makeup calls type thing. And I feel like I've heard Brendan Burke say that.
Yes.
And maybe, where it's like, oh, this is a makeup call from earlier.
Yes.
Which is also, nonsense. And that goes back to like, why were we all comfortable with this? And then Tim Peel gets caught saying something, and then we're like, whoa, no.
Well, because
it was always
nobody knew. It was just
we all did. When we were growing up, we did. Like if it was,
well, yeah,
you just
but
call it something different.
nobody ever, like, once Tim Peel, his audio mistakenly was broadcasted, we all knew, but we didn't know.
And I think if you think the problem was that it was broadcasted, not you, but I feel like there was that discussion. He's like, oh, he got caught. If you think the problem is he got caught and not the fact that it's happening, you go get your head examined. You may have been the victim of a missed call when you were growing up, and you maybe had an elbow to the head. Go get checked out. Because that's a problem. But yeah, someone did some kind of analysis, like going back to something, and it was like 60% of games had the penalties either tied or within one. And that's impossible.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing it on purpose, or you're swallowing the whistle, as you said, late in games when it's tied. Or God, in the playoffs, I don't even, a slash, it's not breaking somebody's stick. You have to like borderline kill somebody, or the puck goes over the glass. You got to be with that kind of it's like the whistles are away, but the guy accidentally, it's on his backhand, the puck's rolling, that goes out, very clearly not trying to do that. And that's the call. And damn, going, especially when you think about that Vegas San Jose series a few years ago and different calls and the way, that is just big yikes.
Yeah.
They have a chance every year to figure it out, and it's amazing that they just decide to not do it.
I mean, we'll see if the Tim Peel situation, makes them look harder at the overall officiating thing. Time will tell. But officiating needs a fine tuning. They need to tighten it up, and they need to do a bit of a better job. Quick update on COVID lists. The Canucks named the 18th person, not player. I don't think it's just players, but the 18th person on their list today. It's a large list. Jake Virtanen hits the COVID list, seemingly testing positive. A lot to figure out there in Vancouver. Tough stuff going on for that city. So, but that about wraps it up for us this week. It was great to be back. I missed you guys last week. I really did. While I was laying on my couch feeling like horrible. I just felt horrible, but it was great to be back this week. Very happy. Thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network, the Hockey Writers, and of course, all of you, our listeners. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Nassaumen Hockey, and find our work at the Hockey Writers. Until next time, everybody, let's go Islanders.